Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Night at the Movies. I'm your host, Stephen Harris, and I'm here with Sir Shits His Pants, the Armored Critic. Tonight, we watched Jurassic World.
I'm really proud of you for going on this trip.
You're gonna have so much fun. And remember, if something chases you, run.
Jurassic World takes us back to the land of Jurassic Park. A couple kids end up on a vacation to the park. Then some crap happens with the kids and Star-Lord has to go save them. Star-Lord goes and saves them. And then some other crap happens where some dinosaurs fight. And that's basically the end of the movie.
So, Helmet Head, what was your overall impression of the movie?
This was a very good movie. There were a lot of problems with it, and overall, I'm not going to say that it's one of those movies we'll never forget, but this was a really good summer flick, and I think that is definitely worth seeing.
So this film was directed by Colin Trevorrow. How do you feel he did it?
Well, Colin Trevorrow basically came out of nowhere with this. He's done like, what, 2 movies? One of which doesn't even have a thumbnail on IMDb. What was the name of the other one?
I can't even
I know, exactly. They were both nothing movies. And when I heard that he was going to do this movie, I thought, why didn't they pick somebody that was a little bit more seasoned? This movie really could have gone either way with a completely green director like this. I think he did an okay job. He definitely hit some of those markers that these kinds of action movies are supposed to hit. I don't know, it just at points seemed kind of cheesy, the direction. There's some scenes where they over-anthropomorphize some of the dinosaurs, especially the T-Rex at the end. They had him stand on a roof and roar like he was trying to make a point. It didn't make any sense. The story was pretty generic. Pretty much was the exact same as the story from the second movie. People get lost and somebody needs to save them. But they took it in a slightly different direction. Obviously, this story is about the park being open and thriving, and thousands of visitors are there at a time. And then all of a sudden everything goes wrong. And it's pretty predictable. I mean, they already made the point in the first movie that this kind of theme park could never possibly work, and this movie just shows exactly why. The dinosaurs all get out and eat people. The ending of the story was the weakest part of it. I mean, I could let the other stuff slide. Like I said, it is a summer movie and an action movie, and you really don't expect movie masterpiece quality stuff out of these kind of summer action movies, but the movie was pretty well held together with the story, but right at the very end, it just kind of fell apart. And it was just one thing that happened in the final action scene. It wasn't one of those things where it takes you out of the movie. It was so bad that it ruined the rest of the movie, but it just felt like it was the weakest link in the whole story.
I'd have to agree with you there. I think it was pretty predictable what was going to happen just going into the movie from what we've seen in previous films. I just think with a better ending, it really would have made for a better movie. I enjoyed it, I really did thoroughly, but the ending was definitely the weakest part. So what about the actors, the characters that they had in the movie? How did you feel about them?
I think the characters were pretty cookie cutter, but they worked for this kind of story. You had 2 kids, and the 2 kids were basically boiled down to one character. They were always together, and neither one of them had any special skill set that really came in handy at any point, other than maybe the genius kid said some shit that might have turned out to be somewhat beneficial, though I can't even really think of an example of that actually happening in the movie.
Just for pointing out dinosaurs' names.
Yeah, which, good, I guess. I mean, they could have just as easily had a tablet that like a Pokédex kind of thing that just said all the dinosaurs' names.
Or an iPhone.
Or an iPhone. Yeah, they could have just said, oh yeah, on my iPhone says that this is a Dilophosaurus. Also, the main character, Chris Pratt, he just carried this movie. He was the best thing about this movie. He is hot shit right now. He just came out of Guardians of the Galaxy doing Star-Lord, and he is all of a sudden the next $1 million actor. I think we're going to see a lot more of him, and I'm very excited about that. He's buffed himself up, lost a lot of weight, and he has just perfect comic timing. But he's also shown that he's actually able to play the badass role. He can run and jump and ride a motorcycle and fire a gun, and he looks really natural doing those things.
Oh, I agree. He was, I think, the perfect choice for this movie. I thought I would have a hard time getting by him as Andy Dwyer from Parks and Recreation because I'm a big fan of the show. I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to see past that, but within the first 5 minutes, I was on board.
Then you had the leading lady, again, kind of cookie-cutter character. She was really prissy and high heels. She wore high heels throughout the entire movie. Even at the end, when in the action scenes when she was running and stuff, I thought, why the fuck is she still wearing those high heels? No woman would be that proud that they wouldn't get rid of the high heels so they could run away from a dinosaur. That didn't make any sense. She really had next to no character development. She ended up staying prissy throughout. She picked up a gun at one point and shot it, and they were like, oh yay, women empowerment, but it kind of fell flat because then she went right back to being the prissy character again right after that.
Yeah, it's true. She really wasn't doing anything for the feminists in this movie. The high heels, the lack of character development for sure. You would almost expect to see maybe some point during the movie she starts to become a little less of a cold, calculated character and a little more down to earth or appreciative of her circumstances, but you really don't get that until that last scene of the movie.
Right, and I mean, you expect that the main character's gonna have to drag her along a little bit, you know, try to get her to toughen up a bit and realize that she's in a serious situation and she has to stop thinking of this from a statistical CAO kind of perspective. But it wasn't until the very last scene that she ended up doing something like that. And again, she wouldn't take off the goddamn heels. Then you've got the main villain. I mean, you could say that there are a lot of evil people in it. I mean, it is a corporation, and everybody there is there for a different reason, and they're all arguing about different things, and they all want the dinosaurs to do different stuff. But the main villain wanted to use the dinosaurs as weapons, specifically the velociraptors, because they were being trained. And that really didn't come off as evil as it was supposed to be. It actually sounded like a really good idea. These things are easy to create in a lab, and they're very dangerous, and they're able to be trained. Why not use them as a weapon? They didn't really make a good case for why that was a bad idea, other than, oh, it gives me bad feelings. We shouldn't make our dinosaurs do things like that. There was that one scene that's in the trailer. This isn't a spoiler. There's a one scene where Chris Pratt is on his motorcycle riding through the woods, and he's got 4 raptors around him, and they're going down to hunt the monster. He's being followed by a whole bunch of soldiers. It's a really neat scene. It's fun to watch. It didn't make a lot of sense because his motorcycle was like a 1940s panhead, and it had street tires, and they weren't even on a dirt trail or anything. They were being just right through the thick of the woods.
Yet he had no trouble keeping up with the velociraptors.
Going 40 to 50 miles per hour, mind you. They said that's how fast they run.
50 when they're hungry.
Well, I'm assuming they were hungry.
It seemed that way.
We have learned more in the past decade from genetics than a century of digging up bones. A whole new frontier has opened up. We have our first genetically modified hybrid.
We just went and made a new dinosaur? Probably not a good idea.
So how do you think that Jurassic World stacks up against the other movies in the Jurassic Park franchise?
Well, obviously, there's no way to recreate the magic from the first movie. The first movie wasn't just a fun action movie, but the way they make you look at those dinosaurs, they really let you soak it in, just the awe and spectacle of the whole thing. And I don't think you're ever going to get that again because, first of all, we've all seen the dinosaurs. There's nothing they can really do to surprise us anymore. You know, they even kind of, I don't know if it's a tongue-in-cheek joke or just ironic, but they said to make the park more interesting, they had to genetically engineer this dinosaur. But they also had to do that to make the movie more interesting, because if this was just about another Spinosaurus or about another Tyrannosaurus that got loose and was killing people, it would have been literally the exact same movie again. But instead, it was just pretty much the exact same movie again. Number 2 was a really well-made movie. It was done by Spielberg as well. You can tell the direction is really good and really solid. The story is dumb, though, and makes even less sense than the story in this one. So I would say that it's better than the second one. Compared to 3, I mean, 3 is just easily the worst movie in the franchise. 3 is bad. It's boring. It makes no sense, and they focus way too much on the animatronics in that one. One thing Spielberg did was he would show little bits and pieces. He'd show like a Tyrannosaurus head come in, and then the camera angle would change, and then the head would turn, then the camera angle would change. He knew the limitations. But on 3, they would just show the Spinosaurus, and it would show all its movements, and it was just clearly a crane. It was clearly not really there. One thing this movie did was they showed a lot of CGI instead of animatronics. But when they showed an animatronic, they had clearly gone light years ahead in the animatronic technology. You could see little nostril movements. You could see little movements in the iris and the retina and stuff like that. It was really, really impressive. But I don't think we're ever going to get another movie that was just quite as spectacular as the first one. The first one came out 22 years ago. 22 years ago, CGI was brand new. Spielberg basically destroyed the claymation animation sector of Hollywood with Jurassic Park. But now CGI is everywhere. This was a CGI fest. Halfway through the movie, I was just like, I'm sick of seeing these cartoon dinosaurs. They're showing way too many of them, way too often, and it took me out. I mean, it was very rare they would show an animatronic. But as far as quality goes, I would say it's better than 2, better than 3, but nowhere near as good as 1.
I'd have to agree, but you'd have to admit that it's just simply impossible to recapture the same type of magic they had in that first movie. No matter how well they can work out a story, there's no way they could compare to that first movie.
Almost 40 feet high. Really think she climbed out?
Depends.
On what?
What kind of dinosaur they cooked up in that lab. Evacuate the island. She's a highly intelligent animal. She will kill anything that moves.
Oh, God.
So who should see this movie?
This movie's basically for everyone. There's a romance in it, obviously, because every Hollywood movie has to have a romance in it. But it doesn't feature prominently, which I'm glad. The movie is good for kids. I mean, you could argue that the kids play a very prominent role in the movie. And the kids that watch this movie will definitely relate the most with the children in this movie. Then there's people our age who like to see a good action flick. Well, that's Chris Pratt is there for that, and he delivers. It's spectacular, it's fun, and he looks really good, really natural playing the role.
Now, do you think that it's too scary for small children?
They really did a good job of not showing any gore. There was parts in the first movie where they showed raw flesh and limbs and dismembered body parts and blood and stuff like that. There was none of that in this movie. There was even a scene where a woman was eaten by a pterodactyl, and then the pterodactyl was eaten by a giant sea monster, and there wasn't even any blood, let alone gore. There were some scary parts, but I mean, it's an action movie. Every action movie has scary parts.
I'd have to agree that while the first movie didn't necessarily have as much death or scary content, I think the first movie was actually a scarier movie. It was nightmare-inducing almost.
Yeah, there's one part where you see Samuel L. Jackson's disembodied arm fall out of a thing with a whole bunch of like flesh hanging out of it. That was way gorier than everything in Jurassic World put together.
I still think back to the scene where the kids are staring at that cup of water and the Tyrannosaurus is coming up behind them and they're watching the cup ripple and just feeling shivers go down my spine. But there really wasn't anything quite like that in this movie. There were parts that were probably a little too scary for a really small child. I don't think it was it's certainly not a horror movie by any means.
I was in grade 4 or 5 when Jurassic Park came out, and I think I saw it when I was in grade 6, and it didn't scare me. I don't think a young child would really get that scared from this movie.
So, how would you rate this movie?
Well, on the Armored scale, I would put it on the so good it's good part. It's definitely well above average. I wouldn't say it's the best movie you'll ever see, but for 2015, this definitely brings back some of the nostalgia from the original Jurassic Park movie, but will also give you some new fun memories of the Jurassic World and Jurassic universe.
Well, folks, that's it for this installment of Night at the Movie. We'll see you next time.
I'm getting some rain.
It's the helmet, I think, is what I can
Is
hear.
it
Like
because there's a loose buckle?
Yeah.
There's a scene in the movie.
Do you want to do more about the Asian dude actually from the first movie who was like the mastermind behind the cloning? Actually turned out to be evil in this movie, which was kind of neat.
Yeah, but was he though? I mean, again, he kind of just had his own idea of what the research was supposed to be about. He wanted the dinosaurs to be profitable, and I don't see why why wouldn't somebody who's based his entire career on creating something not want that something to be profitable? Especially considering it's really groundbreaking technology. I mean, people are going to be using that kind of technology for ages to come. And there's so many applications for just genetically engineering a dinosaur.
I don't understand why that would never be enough for someone to see a dinosaur at a theme park. Why would that ever become boring? I can't imagine not being completely blown away by seeing a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Up close and personal.
There's only one person in the movie who made a really bad decision, and I don't know if you call him evil, but it would almost make him the villain of the movie. It's the guy that owned the park. When their genetically engineered dinosaur got out and was roaming the forest, they had the chance to take it out, and they should have taken it, and he said, "Oh no, let's not tell the guests, they don't need to know about this. Oh no, let's not kill it. Let's just take some stun guns and tasers, even though it is 50 feet long and is genetically engineered to survive all sorts of attacks. Oh no, let's not send in more than a group of 10 people. It'll be fine." And then of course the dinosaur gets away and ends up killing not only a whole bunch of dinosaurs, but a bunch of people too.
And what was funny thinking back toward the start of the movie for me was how very easily they could have prevented the entire issue by checking the GPS, the tracking device, on the dinosaur.
Oh yeah, you're saying when the dinosaur first goes missing, they do like a thermal search for it and say, oh well, it's not in its cage because none of the thermal cameras picked it up. But they didn't immediately say, okay, let's check its GPS tracker. Instead, she leaves and drives off. And when she's halfway to where she's going, she calls up and is like, "We have a problem. check its GPS. And they're like, oh yeah, the GPS says it's still in the cage. It's
Why
like,
wouldn't that be the first thing you do?
I know, that was dumb. Also, why didn't she make the call before she got in her car? Why was she already halfway to her destination when she picked up the phone to say there was a problem?